Hey everyone, tarekith here, and today we're going to be looking at the Omnis Duo from Alpha Theta. As some of you know, Alpha Theta is the parent company of Pioneer DJ, and they recently announced that they're going to be releasing new DJ products under the Alpha Theta name. And unlike the Pioneer DJ kind of label that they've used so far, these products aren't going to be aimed at club DJs. They'll be a little bit more design focused with features and functionality that your average club DJ may or may not need. The first unit to come out is this Omnis Duo. I've had it pre-ordered since it was first announced. It's been a bit divisive in the DJ community for a few reasons, which are obvious and some which are maybe not so obvious. So I want to kind of give my thoughts on this now that I've had it for about a month. I've used it extensively at home. I've played out with it in a couple clubs. So I've had some pretty good hands-on time to get acquainted with it and give you some functionality overviews of how it works. I won't be covering every single feature. I think most of it's pretty self-explanatory. DJ controllers and setups aren't super complicated, and there's already plenty of videos already when this is first announced where people covered it feature by feature if you want to go look at that kind of thing. To give you some background about myself and why I chose the Omnis Duo and what kind of history I'm coming from when I talk about its features and functionality. I've been DJing for almost 30 years now. I very early jumped on the laptop bandwagon. I went right from vinyl to laptops back in the day. For the last 15, 16, 17 years, I've been using Native Instruments Tractor for all of my DJing. And for the last, say, 3 years or so, I haven't been playing out much. Most of my DJing has just been for fun and to record mixes for friends. So I've actually been using just the Tractor DJ app on a 12-inch iPad Pro combined with the Native Instruments Z1 controller. Which has been a nice little portable, great setup for me. It's worked really well. I'm strictly basically an AB DJ. I don't really do a lot of controllers and kind of things like that. So it worked pretty well for me just as a nice simple DJ setup I can carry anywhere. Unfortunately, I started playing out more recently and I was having problems with the DJ app on my iPad. Just sound dropping out for 30 seconds for no reason or locking up. Native Instruments hasn't really updated it in years, and it seems like they're kind of really just neglecting the entire Tractor ecosystem. So I've been looking at other options now that I'm getting more gigs playing out. For years now, I've watched other DJs, on Pioneer controllers and CDJs and things like that, just have a pair of headphones and their USB stick when they play out. They don't have to bring any other hardware, and that was really appealing to me. Obviously, it's very simple and very easy, so I was pretty sure I wanted to kind of jump into the Rekordbox ecosystem with whatever I went forward to. But however, the Pioneer DJ hardware lately is kind of in a weird spot. They haven't really done many updates as far as new hardware in a while. Mostly I only need a 2-channel controller or setup. I definitely did not want a laptop involved, so standalone units were the only thing I was looking at. The XDJ RX3 on paper looked kind of close, but it seems a little long in the tooth now, it's due for an update. Not too long ago, Pioneer released the Opus Quad, which I think is amazing looking. I know it's kind of divisive again. It's not what your standard DJ setup looks like. But it was pretty clear from that they're changing the way they organize their layout and their controls, the software on screen. It uses the new Rekordbox Plus format for your Rekordbox libraries that you store on USB sticks. So unfortunately, the Opus Quad was just too big for me for what I need. It's 30 pounds, it's huge. All the accessories cost 3 times as much for it. Things like deck savers and carry bags, just because it is so big. While I'll mostly be using these at home, there are times I had to bring my own sound out to gigs, and I just didn't want to haul that around. And at the same time, like I said, something like the RX3 just seemed a little long in the tooth, and I had a feeling an update was coming. So right around the same time, however, they announced the new Omnis Duo under the Alpha Theta brand name. And while it's not strictly something that somebody looking to play clubs would be interested in, I thought for my use as somebody who's familiar with a Tractor S4, it'd actually be a pretty good cross grade to get me into the Pioneer ecosystem. So I was pretty interested in it right off the bat and pre-ordered it right away. I think there's a lot of divisiveness about the Omnis Duo just based on the way it looks. It's very different looking from a standard all-black DJ controller. It doesn't have a lot of the hands-on controls a lot of the club setups have. So it got quite a bit of ridicule right off the bat. I don't really pay too much attention to that, but I do want to address some of those things that people were kind of faulting about this. And do I think they're legit or do I not think they're legit? What's it like after actually using the Omnis Duo for a month of pretty heavy use? So with that, let's kind of dive in. Let's do an overview so I can show you a little more what we're talking about, what I like, what I don't like, and then we'll come back as usual and I'll give a quick recap on my thoughts on this. Okay, so here we are zoomed in a little bit so you can see what we're talking about with the Omnis Duo. As you can see, unlike pretty much every other bit of DJ gear, it's not black, it's dark blue. Personally, I think it looks wonderful, especially in person. I think it looks much nicer than it did online. I happen to like dark blue anyway, so maybe I'm an easy sell on that. But every person I've showed this to, like, they've all commented on the fact that it looks really nice, even though it looks different than what you're used to. The overall build quality is fantastic. I was hoping it would be professional feeling controller, and it is. The knobs feel good, the faders feel good. The pitch sliders are a little smaller than maybe you're used to, but they feel really accurate. Crossfader is very smooth. I don't use crossfaders much, so I'm not maybe the best judge of that, but it feels like it'd be no problems whatsoever. The jog wheels are amazing. They have a nice, really solid weight to them. They're very, very smooth and responsive. Again, these are much better quality than I was expecting. All the inputs and outputs are great. You've got stereo, XLR, quarter-inch combi jacks for the main outputs. They sound awesome. I feel like this sounds much better than the RX3 and the RX2 I've used in the past. There's also RCA outputs for the booth output, which can double as a master output number 2 if you need. There's a USB port on the back, an SD card slot for your record box libraries. There's a USB-C port for charging. And you can use like little power banks like you use for charging your phone to either recharge this up if it's totally dead or just extend the built-in 5-hour battery life if you need to. There's the dual headphone ports on the front, 1/4 inch and 1/8 inch. They're very loud, more than loud enough for what I would ever need, which is nice. I know there's been plenty of times on tractor controllers and whatnot where I've just wished I had more volume on the headphones, and that's definitely not a concern here. The display itself is excellent. It's actually a much better quality display than I was expecting. It's super sharp, way sharper than it looks on some of the reviews I saw online. In person, I have no issues with the quality of the display. The viewing angle on it's amazing. It's actually probably the best viewing angle of any display I've ever seen. You can get super low and still see really good. So even though it doesn't tilt up like some of the Denon DJ stuff, I've had no problems in the clubs being able to see everything I need on the display. Kind of the only downside to the display is just like sometimes if I'm zoomed out really far on my tracks, and you can see it's pretty smooth as the tracks play. If I'm zoomed out really far and changing the pitch, like you get like a little bit of weird screen flicker on the waveforms, but that's about it. Although that's the only kind of downside of the display I can talk about. It's not quite multi-touch, but you can do things like flick your way through it. So, it's been more responsive than I expected. Again, it's not quite as on par with something like an iPhone or iPad, but pretty close. So having used the display to navigate things and access certain functionality hasn't been a problem for the most part. One of the other things I like about this is you can record directly to a USB stick. So if you want to record your sets, you don't have to have like a laptop connected. One of the downsides of this is you can only record to the USB stick. You can't record to the SD card. I personally only really want the SD card because it's flush. It's built into the unit. I could just leave it in there and throw it in my bag. I don't have to worry about getting damaged. So having to put an SD card in, a USB stick in just to record my sets is kind of annoying. The other kind of annoyance as far as recording goes is there's no control of like the volume level of your recording. Like it's based on whatever your master level is. So you need to make sure your gain staging is really good on the master. You're not clipping, otherwise you're going to clip your recording too. And there's no way to know that until after the fact. Kind of on that note, actually definitely on that note, one of my major complaints about the Omnis Duo is the master meters. The channel meters are great. So if I'm playing something back, like you don't get a lot of segments as far as like the LEDs, but they're very accurate. They're responsive. I keep things just barely touching that little red LED up top. Let's see if I can get that to pop up. If I can keep things just barely hitting that red LED, it's been very easy to have very consistent mixes volume level wise with such few segments. I think they did a good job of like the ballistics of the metering. However, the master meter is only on the display and it's super tiny. It's up here, these little white bars, like that is your master meter. And let me play something back and show you what I'm talking about. Unfortunately, the meters themselves, like the actual signal level, they use like this tangerine pastel salmon color that is impossible to see. Like, you're looking at it as I would look at it from like a DJ set. Like I can't see accurately how high my signal level is. So am I overdriving the club sound system? I don't know. Am I overdriving the recordings I'm doing? I don't know. It's just impossible to see. I actually have reached out to Alpha Theta a couple times for some support questions, and they've been super responsive, which is good. But I even pointed that out to their tech support, like, hey, you just can't see the master meters on this display. Like, it seems broken. that it's so hard to see. And even their tech support said that was brought up multiple times, and he's surprised that they released it with that color. So I think it's one of the few cases on this unit where they kind of chose like fashion over function. And I really hope they gave us something a little bit easier to see than that weird kind of tangerine color, master meters. Like, it's a very important control. We should be able to see it at a glance. You shouldn't have to squint and get really close to see what your master output is. But that's one of the few complaints I have about this, that's the only downside of kind of the display for the most part. I feel like everything they moved from the hardware controls to display has been well thought out. It's things I don't really need to access very much, like your jog mode, you can set to vinyl or CDJ, your quantize for the hot cues, like how often you want those to trigger. It's got slip mode per deck. And again, like I said, the display is really responsive. You don't have to press hard or be very accurate. If you're somebody who doesn't use hot cues, these can only be hot cue pads, but if you use memory cues instead, those are still accessible here in the display. There's a panel on each deck for your memory cues if you use those. Also for the pitch faders, you can change the range from ±6 to ±10, ±16, or ±100%, as well as turn off master tempo on each deck. If you're not familiar with Pioneer gear, master tempo will let you change the speed of a record without changing the pitch, so you can keep things key synced, which is nice. And again, that's all been moved to display, and that's fine. Those aren't things I need to access very much. One of the things they have moved, one other thing that I think they kind of moved maybe a little bit too much to the display for me at least, is the beat effects. So we have hardware controls for that. You can turn it on or off. You can change your depth of the beat effects, and change the tempo of the beat effects and change what the beat settings are. But to actually choose which deck those are applied to, you have to go back to the screen. So right now it's channel 1, channel 2, channel 1, channel 2. So this is what, I use echo a lot for my transitions, just to kind of smooth things out. And unfortunately, having to constantly go back to the screen just to select channel 1 and channel 2 and actually press like another, not only do I have to like open up this effects panel, but I also have to open up a second panel to change that. Like, I wish they would just let us select it directly from this panel if there's a way, or give us a shortcut, like shift and load 1 or 2 would change the beat effects to left, the deck 1 or deck 2, something like that. That's pretty much the only hardware control I'm missing on the front panel that I constantly have to go back to the display for. And it's not a huge deal, but I would point that out. Like everything else, I feel like they've trimmed away, to the bare minimum. And for A/B style DJs like me, it's been fine. You've got your EQs, they can be in isolator mode if you want. You've got your trims, you've got your color effects knobs. Again, you can change the effect type for the sound color effects: space, dub echo, crush, sweep, noise, and filter. I use filter a lot. One other kind of slight downside I've noticed with the filter is the resonance is quite high for like a DJ style filter. And like, this is probably the same for all Pioneer units. I'm just not used to it, but it's very obvious when you're sweeping the filter. It can be kind of hard to do it subtly if you're like, taking the bass out of one track while bringing in the treble on another track. Like, you have to be very slow, or it's very obvious you're doing a filter sweep. So I kind of wish the resonance was turned on a little bit on that, but again, it's probably just the way it's always been for Pioneer stuff, and I'm only getting used to it now. And again, for the effects, the beat effects, we don't have all the effects of some of the other higher end mixers, but we still have 8 effects here for the beat effects: delay, echo, transformer, flanger, spiral, reverb, pitch, and roll. I use spiral and echo almost exclusively, so those are fine for me. Again, we have the Bluetooth controls on the front of the unit. I'll be honest, I have no desire for Bluetooth on this unit. It's not why I got it. I know it's a big draw, is the fact that you could sync up a phone and record whatever's playing out of that phone onto a deck and scratch it and set your cue points and whatever. But I'm not sure how practical that's really going to be, like in a club use or like at a party. If someone says, "Hey, can you play this song?" and well, we don't have streaming on this unit. I heard it's coming, but right now there's no streaming support for like Beatport or whatever. So if you don't have that song, they can pair their phone to the Omnis Duo, and you can do it old school, where like basically the phone just acts like a channel input, and you can just run it directly through your effects and EQ, or you can record it. You can actually record the entire song, and then you can set cue points that way and scratch it and things like that. But again, I don't know how practical it is if somebody says, "Hey, can you play a song?" to have them say, "Yeah, sure, hold on, let's pair your phone." You go through that process, and then you have to leave the phone sitting there playing at the same volume level, the whole time that song plays while you record it, just so you can scratch it. So it's neat functionality, but I'm not sure how practical it's really going to be. As well as with the Bluetooth, we have regular Bluetooth output to like portable speakers and things like that. But as we all know, the latency in that mode is still too high to really use for most DJing. So it's there if you need it, but it's got the same caveats it's always had. What is new for the Omnis Duo, though, is the new wireless transmission protocol they have with the new 8 speakers, the Wave 8 speakers they released. It's not Bluetooth, it's a proprietary format. You have to use the receivers built into the speakers to actually transmit from the Omnis to there. But if you wanted to with those speakers, you could run this entirely wirelessly. You don't need any power, or you don't need any audio cables. It can just all be over the air. So again, pretty pricey investment if you have to get those speakers too to make it work. But if that's something that appeals to you, you playing at like hidden parties in the woods or at the beach with your friends, you have that option, which is kind of nice. Again, not something I really need. Same with streaming support. Like I know a lot of people are upset it doesn't have streaming support, but I can't imagine having to jump onto any streaming service to look for a track. It just seems way too tedious for me in the middle of a mix. So that's about it. I think overall, I think they did a great job of kind of paring down to the controls you just need. It's not a club setup. A lot of the club functionality has been removed, memory cue buttons, things like that. I'm not a controllerist when it comes to DJing. I'm a simple AB DJ. So, everything I need is right here and nothing more, and that's fine with me. Again, the only thing that's been kind of frustrating is just this channel select for the beat effects, but otherwise there hasn't been a single control I wished was on the front panel that isn't here. The only other issue I've kind of had with this has been with the syncing when using the sync support on tracks, making two tracks automatically beat sync to each other. There's been times where I know my beat grids have been set correctly in Rekordbox on the laptop and I've tested it there and it works fine, but for some reason two tracks just refuse to sync up properly. And I can't tell if it's the quantize setting that's just a little bit off or if it's actually the sync algorithm. But for whatever reason, there's just certain times I have to turn off sync and do it manually, old school style, when it comes to beat matching. And that's fine. I've been DJing 30 years. It's not the end of the world. But, sync should work if you have that functionality. And there's times I can't get it to work reliably. It's maybe only one mix out of like every 30 or so. It doesn't happen very often. But when it does, the only way I've been able to fix it is just turn the unit off and turn it back on. And then those same two tracks will sync perfectly. So there's something going on there in the software, and hopefully they're going to address it. I know already this is April 14th, 2024. And Alpha Theta has told me that a new OS update is coming, a new firmware update is coming for this any day now. So hopefully that'll be one of the things they fix in there. I know the other big thing that they fixed was the fact that in your library, after you've played tracks, like they're not marked as played anyway, so there's no way to see what tracks you've already played. In other Pioneer gear, like the tracks are colored green, so you've played that. And I know for sure that's being addressed in the new firmware update that's going to drop any day now. But other than that, that sync issue is the only problem I've had as far as software goes on this unit. Everything's worked great out of the box. All my settings from my Rekordbox prep, like I said, this is the first time I've used Pioneer gear, so once I pre-ordered this, I prepped my entire DJ library in Rekordbox and everything transferred over perfectly. Waveforms are fine. All my album art was there. All my cues and loops worked fine. So that was really nice. Just that one sync issue, and then the issue with, the master meters being too hard to see and then not seeing what tracks you've already played. No indication of that. Otherwise, the software has been really great, really intuitive to find your way around. If you need to dive into the settings to change things, I've had no problems like finding what I needed and whatnot. So it's nice. And, like I said, this display itself is really responsive. You can just flick to fly through things. So the fact that you have controls on the display isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's still pretty quick to access them. So yeah, those are kind of my thoughts, what I like, what I don't like about the Omnis Duo. It's a much more professional controller than I was expecting. I should say standalone unit, not controller, but you know what I mean. The build quality is fantastic, and that was one of my biggest concerns. I really wanted, this to feel super solid for the price. I know it's an expensive unit. People are comparing this to like the Mix Go and some of the Prime Go standalone units from Denon DJ. I think honestly this is a similar target audience in some respects, but I think the build quality and some of the professional DJ features in here are going to attract more people who aren't just starting out or aren't just after that bedroom party DJ kind of vibe. You can do some professional sounding mixes on this. You can record them. If you're familiar with the Pioneer Rekordbox ecosystem, everything will feel right at home. Like all your tracks prep will work right out of the box. So I think this is going to appeal to a lot more people than just those starting out. And I think under that circumstances, the $1,600 price tag is well worth it. You're getting a lot there. And I think that if people kind of can get past, just the way it looks, and it looks so different, and actually look at the features and functionality or try it hands-on and just know that it feels really professional, I think they're going to get a lot of people converted and people will appreciate more what they're trying to do with this device. So that's a few little thoughts on it. Let's step back and I'll give you the overall review. Thank you. Okay, so that was an overview of my thoughts on the Omnis Duo from Alpha Theta. Overall, I'm very happy with this unit. The build quality is fantastic, which is a huge concern for me. The knobs feel good, the faders feel good, jog wheels are great, the display is excellent, much better than you would think from any of the online videos you've seen. In person, it looks really sharp. The viewing angles are excellent on it as well. I have no problems with it being laid flat like in the club. You can see it from almost all the way down. If you're glancing at a really low angle. So there's no concerns about that. The outputs are plenty hot and they sound great. The headphone output is really hot, way hotter than I need, which is nice to have. A lot of DJ gear I've used recently has been kind of the opposite. I wish it was a little bit louder. You could definitely damage your hearing with the headphone outputs if you're not too careful. Not necessarily a bad thing. You know, it's better to have too much and not need it than need it and not have it. Like I said, it sounds good. The build quality is good. We get a lot of the effects in from the higher end Pioneer units. We use the new Rekordbox Plus format, and I've had no problems with that as far as like organization goes. One of the things that was very nice for me is, as this was my first Pioneer DJ Alpha Theta product and my first time using Rekordbox, like all of the prep work I had done leading up to actually having this unit arrive after I pre-ordered it worked perfectly. All the track prep and Rekordbox worked. My cues were all there. Just everything worked flawlessly. So I've had no problems with that. It's been great being able to go back and forth from like my phone or my iPad with Rekordbox on those for prepping cue points, loop points, things like that. For the lot of down tempo stuff I play, like my loops and stuff are very critical to how I actually pull that off because I'm changing tempo so much. So it's nice having options on when and how I can prep that kind of material and then have it all work, you know, right in the box the way it's supposed to with no issues. There have been a few software things I think need to be addressed, but as I've mentioned already, Alpha Theta's already reached out to tell me that a new update is coming. It is like April 14th, 2024 when I made this, and that I'm currently on version 1.02 of the firmware in Omnis Duo, but they've said a new version is coming any day now, so I'm going to keep a lookout for that, and I'll report back if there's any major changes. But yeah, I understand that the Omnis Duo is a very different look compared to what Pioneer has done in the past. And for most club DJs, it's going to be pretty divisive. It doesn't, you know, it looks kind of like a toy to some people. I could see that. It's small and it's got the blue color, you know, it doesn't look like your standard, you know, professional pro audio gear, which is kind of what I like about it. I think if people can kind of get past the way it looks and actually try one and feel the build quality, feel how solid it is, understand that like for the most part the touchscreen functionality has been implemented really well. They give you all the controls you need on the hardware without much else to get in the way, with a couple exceptions which I pointed out before. So yeah, I think they've done a really good job at making this appeal to a lot of people. You know, people who need like a portable unit that can be battery powered. People want just a nice professional feeling unit at home for when they're prepping their sets and practicing for club gigs, you know, where they have Pioneer stuff already installed in the club. Or just people want something a little more design forward. I know, you know, people get a lot of slack for that kind of stuff, but you know, we use this stuff every day and sometimes you want something that looks a little different, looks a little nicer. And I think this really checks all the boxes as far as that goes. So yeah, I'm very happy with Omnis Duo. It's kind of funny that one of the reasons that I was first interested in this was to get into the Rekordbox ecosystem and have that option, just bring headphones and a USB stick to clubs. But I've become kind of so used to this controller layout and I like how focused it is that I think if I was going to do a club gig, you know, that had a Pioneer setup already installed, you know, CDJ 3000s and an A9 is pretty popular where I live, I would actually see if it was an option for me to bring this instead, provided there's room to set up, just because I do like how focused it is. A lot of the functionality and features you see on these larger DJ setups, just I don't need. I'm not a controllerist, you know, I don't have like dozens of cues and memory cues and things like that. So yeah, I don't know if I would actually use a USB stick if that was an option to bring the Omnis Duo instead, which is kind of funny. But I think it says a lot about like how much thought and effort Alpha Theta put into this. And you know, hopefully going forward, people will give it a little bit more, you know, they'll give it another chance and actually try one first before slagging it off just based on how it looks, because I think that, you know, you're missing out on a really powerful and really well done DJ setup if you do that. So that's it. That's my thoughts. If you have any questions, put them in the comments. I'll get to them as soon as I can. Otherwise, stay tuned for the next review. Thank you.